Well, we are about to have an intimate conversation with a gentleman who I like to say, when you're in certain rooms, there's times where you be quiet, because the great late Larry King said you never learned anything whilst you're talking. So thankfully I'm losing my voice. Is anyone else losing their voice whilst they're here? Yeah, I think that's going to be the feedback from this conference. Had fun, lost my voice, but you made some great investments. So, democratizing business. Give context. I'm 25, so I can't give context on where we've been. But thankfully, I'm joined by a veteran in the game. So what did democratized business look like when you were starting your journey?
That's great. Thanks, Jordan. And this section, I'm going to do what Greg described, and we've already been easing into this session, I think, all day, which is I want to lay the table for your generation, and then it's really on you, Jordan, to figure out what comes next. So, and I don't mean that pejoratively or anything like that. My knowledge is different from your knowledge, and in fact, I'm sure when it comes to Web3 and democratization, you're going to be much better at it than I would ever be. So when I looked at that question, I went back to my Oxford tutorial days as an undergraduate, and it's sort of like, I looked at the question, and I think there's two big questions within it. Democratization, what does that mean? And the other is business, which business, and what are we talking about? In terms of democratization, I'm not sure what that means. Democratize as opposed to communize, socialize, capitalize, or are we talking about decentralized? What do we mean by democratized? And I'm not sure that I have any answers there, that we'll chat. But business, I think will define away the business of health or the business of education. Well, not the business of education or the business of politics or the business of religion, and we'll just talk about traditional corporations, which is what I know best. And I already hinted this morning that, for me at least, a thoughtful thought process for every investor, but also for every future entrepreneur and changer and innovator, is to start with some questions. Why do we do it the way we do it today? What's most broken? And were I able to fix it? What value would it create? And could I hold on to some? That's sort of generically the thought process. You can start it in the other way, which is, here's a great value creation opportunity because we're creating some big new thought that addresses a pain point that was created by something that now needs to be changed. It doesn't matter which way you work it. So in terms of that, the traditional corporate structure of today, several hundred years old. The Dutch began it in the late 15th century, first stock certificate, 1606. We ramped it up in the Industrial Revolution, and then we turned it into the multinational corporate model of today. It's not that old, but it didn't exist before that, and it may not exist in the future. But that's sort of where this thing has come from. What is the role of the corporation? I think you generically know that, but just to give you some sense, it is, raise some capital against the common purpose, create a vision, strategy, and some plans to deploy that capital, build a leadership team, an organization, and some culture, do some work, whatever the work of the corporation is, and deliver something amazing in terms of products and services that add value to the users. And if you go down that path, just very quickly, generically, all of those things are broken. They're all tremendously broken. Capital formation, if you're a startup, Alan Greenspan famously said, the only way to grow the US GDP is to make sure we easily flow capital to the innovators and entrepreneurs that build wealth. But that process is completely broken everywhere, including in America. It's time-consuming, it's costly, creates huge friction. The entrepreneurs spend all their time trying to raise money instead of building their businesses. The public market capital formation process is even more broken. Intermediaries take vast fees and costs in order to provide capital that should really flow easily between corporations and markets. And then they burden you with vast amounts of ongoing costs and issues and short-termism. And that's an example. I'll only give one other example because I'm burning up a lot of time. And that would be Pick one at random. Strategy. I'm a corporate strategist. Strategy in the largest corporations in the world is established by a board of 7 to 15 people, a CEO, and a C-suite of perhaps 8 to 10 people, one of whom is the chief strategy officer. They may use external resources, McKinsey or Booz or something, and half those people are not qualified because they don't know the industry. Half those people are not strategists. They are executors and operators. And now we bless them with a very narrow mindset to build corporate strategy. And all of the evidence demonstrates that on the one hand, the world's greatest value creators are disruptive new companies. Large corporations are not creating as much value. And the second is, when you look at the lessons of lost value, which corporations lose the most value most quickly over the last time period, most of those losses occur because of strategy failures, not because of operational, technical, or regulatory failures. So it's broken.
Yeah.
I don't know how to fix it. Jordan, how does Web3 or blockchain or digital, how do we fix the today's corporate model?
I like that. It's like you've handed me a grenade, saying, "Here, hold this." I guess that's the responsibility of our generation, right? So, as the crypto guy, and I make no secrets about that, 110% of my net worth is in crypto. And the reason why is because the barriers to entry are reduced, which is one good thing, right? We see more diversity. We see people of different ages, different backgrounds, different accreditations in the space. What's scary about that is everything's not equal in this space. And one thing, if any of you are about to enter into the DeFi space especially, is use platforms like Certic, right? We were talking about due diligence earlier, especially sitting next to the great John Murray over there. I'm not blessed with due diligence. I always say I know people smarter and wealthier than me who helped me make those investment decisions. So Certic do the auditing for you. Now, this doesn't mean that the project is a guaranteed success. But what it does mean is that professionals have gone through, by hand, through the smart contract. Now, that's a conversation where you can grab me on the side and ruin my voice. But these things that you don't understand, don't let that stop you from investing. And that's where you hear in crypto, do your own research, but then the other question is, where do you go? So if I was to give anyone in this room that guide, I'd recommend a platform like Certic, where you can research your favorite project or an upcoming one and have that reassurance that the smart contract has been audited. And in simple terms, what that means is the developers who have built that protocol haven't left a back door for them to pull the rug out from under your feet and you lose all your capital, okay? Because we don't speak that language, assumably. So you need to find someone who does speak that language, who comes from a neutral background. And I'd love for anyone to pull me aside and tell me about another platform that audits smart contracts accordingly. So don't worry, you don't need to speak the language nowadays. Thankfully, we have third parties like Certic who are doing that hard work. I'm not affiliated with them. I use them. I've had great success with Certic, and I recommend you do your own research as well. So that's one way which we're seeing today. Some of those problems are being changed. The other one is we talk about security a lot. Not as big of an issue potentially during your time, which is because everything now is moving towards that decentralized way of investing, it means you're responsible. And it's kind of ironic because we want this decentralized vision until things go wrong, and then we want that centralized party to step in. We then want Uphold to come get our funds back because we sent it to the wrong address. And so what you need to understand, and again, this is something I do, I wouldn't be telling you to do something I don't do myself, is you need to have two identities now in this democratized business world. So I have a whole separate laptop that I do all my crypto activity on. So in my personal opinion, if you're invested in crypto and you're investing on the same device that you do social media with, that you illegally stream UFC, like me, you are your biggest threat to your security nowadays. Don't get me wrong. Democratized, decentralized business gives us more ownership, but what that means is we have to take a greater responsibility of our security. So number one, please separate your two lives. Where you do all your crypto activity on one laptop, it could be $300. It doesn't need to be thousands. And then the final point I'd give you all is investigate, learn from people's mistakes, create separate email accounts to use those email accounts only for your crypto activity. It's a lot of work. But I always say this, and I'll finish on this point. Great security in this new democratized, decentralized business era, it's like good plumbing. You don't know if it works until you get a leak under your sink. So the best security helps you sleep well at night, and you'll never know if it works. So nowadays, we have a new challenge, but personally, I'd prefer these challenges than the ones, of course, faced before.
So I'm going to use you as a case study, Jordan, because I'm going to bundle, and I know it's not quite right to do so, I'm going to bundle everything we just talked about, you talked about, under the umbrella of capital formation. And so what we just heard was an engaged, did you say you were 26?
25.
25, an engaged 25-year-old who is an active investor backing global projects. We happen to call them crypto projects, but now in the past that didn't happen. We know that. We're Keiretsu, you know, a number of us are, the world's largest angel group, and we know the average age is 60. We're the 25-year-olds. So you can see how we have begun to popularize, which can be a bad thing, or democratize investing. And assuming you're an accredited investor, there's no rules being broken. And then we heard a moment ago about 7,700 Jordans who have amassed, whatever the number was, 300 million into a DAO. And that's a very powerful force, but it's a very youthful, powerful force. And it's clearly a change in the model of capital formation, a dramatic change in the model of capital formation, which we just already, I think I established, is broken in the way we've done it before. Now, in my head, what I heard was crowdfunding in a technology-enabled model. It didn't really speak yet to other things like governance or how the work gets done. DAO, you know, distributed autonomous organization. It didn't say crowdfunding platform. It said DAO. So I'm going to ask you a question, which is, let's assume for a minute that that was a little thread around the global democratization of capital formation with the digital natives fully engaged and well able to raise hundreds of millions behind the things they care about. That's clearly an improvement to capital formation. What goes on with governance? So I'm going to ask you the question, which is, do you believe that there is a crowdfunding model of governance where large enterprises can be managed by the wisdom of the crowd? Because our generation pretty much believes that a command and control top-down structure is the way to get work done. So do you believe in the wisdom of crowd, Jordan?
From my experience, I do. And I say that and I give reference to the ex-punks who are in the house today. You'll hear more about the ex-punks if you're not familiar with them. They're a shining case study of how community really can dictate your success, right? And I'll do my best to speak on your behalf, which is ultimately they had a vision. They were very successful in a very short period of time, and they realized that they could do more and you should do more, right? And ultimately now, without a community, you have no funds and you have no direction. And it goes exactly the same where, could you call it community fundraising? To a degree, right? The profits your team made, you then siphon that into on XRP, which now educates investors around the world, not only about XRP, not only about Ripple, not only about the XRP ledger, but also blockchain technology, right? Now, that's quite altruistic. Monetizing that platform, I mean, I'm sure they'll share how they're going about doing that. But the vision didn't start with on XRP, and I'm damn sure it's not going to stop there. So the community now, that voice is heard a lot more.
Right.
Where market research, there is a department for that. Correct me if I'm wrong, you don't have a market research team. Don't make me look like a fool. Okay, Kai's shaking his head, they don't.
Good.
So we don't need these governance structures, which I used the cliche back in the day we needed. Now, we can put something out on Twitter, that's our immediate feedback, that's our market research. It's up to leadership to either listen to them or to move forward with the leadership's vision. But, again, I'm using them as an example, they have to understand that when you put your work out there, and I know there's a lot of business owners in this room, you are an artist. You will be critiqued. Time settles all arguments. So right now, there's this great sense of community. Right now, there's companies like the X-Punks who are listening to the community and have had great success. But where I fall short of this, Matthew, and potentially most people will, is we won't hear about the unsuccessful businesses.
Yeah.
We'll hear about the winners.
Yes.
And we'll hear about them more than ever before.
Yes.
But they exist. And I'd say ask the X-Punks exactly how do they do it.
Yes. I'm enjoying this, Jordan, and I think you're a good improviser, and I like improvising as well. So let's keep on down this thread, because we're not trying to look for the right answer. No one knows the right answer, but I'm enjoying hearing a digital native express your views. So I'm going to go to the next layer, or a next layer, the culture. So in the traditional corporate model, culture is broken. We know that. We know that most large companies have diversity issues across the board. And even though people are ratcheting down with rules, they aren't changing the way they should be changing. We know that there are ways in which large corporations have not met the needs of their employees. We consistently hear that feedback. Not flexible enough, won't let me work from home, telling everyone to come back into the office, even though we've been more productive in the last 2 years than ever before. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of things that are cultural, and corporations are criticized, and we know they're not changing as quickly as they could. That's why government is actually stepping in most countries to bring new rules and regulations in force. I'll give one more example before I ask the question, which is sustainability, which I view somewhat as a cultural issue. Most of the world's large corporations are bad on sustainability. You know, my oldest son is working for the organization that is setting all of the ESG standards for the world, and they're trying to figure out how to implement them, and they're getting a lot of pushback. It was in the newspaper yesterday. And, you know, all of the large corporations are going to resist the notion that there'd be ESG scores on products, because they don't want their end users to know how bad they are, because they wouldn't buy the products that were red marked on ESG. Okay? So the question to you is, do you have any evidence that whatever we want to call it, a Web3 DAO approach, on the one hand cares about diversity, sustainability, that's one point, and the second is it actually being delivered in this new model that you're trying to describe?
So I studied social sciences, and I understand that we can't speak on behalf of the other. Right? So the other, in my case, would be speaking on behalf of female representation in the crypto space. Right? Statistics have shown how true and how they measure this, that 10% of crypto investors are women. So then we have to peel back that onion and, you know, playing the devil's advocate, why should we increase that number? Well, for me, I know why. Because 9 times out of 10, if we leave that statistic how it is, the woman is then tied to the man. Meaning that if the man was to leave, women now lose their power of autonomy. Right? If the man has most of the wealth and they leave that relationship, whether that's through choice or through death, women now can't move as fast or as freely as they would like. So that statistic makes sense that we need to change that in my perspective. In terms of, is our space, crypto, blockchain, DeFi, is it changing that? It's too early to say. It is, and I would say that because it still comes back down to investing as a whole. Same but different. If anything, getting into the space I'm in is scarier, right? It sounds sexy from the outside looking in, making 1,000, 10,000 X on your investment, However, there's a language barrier. And traditional investing, in my opinion, and again, I can't speak for the other, it seems safer, more predictable, right? So what this does allow is we are starting to see things like Eveline, I don't know if she's in this room right now, she's got a women's only group starting. And again, in our space, we have very big platforms. And so she's able to provide women that opportunity to find someone that looks like them. Because ultimately, you're not going to do something if they don't look like you. Same for me. I would never have this opportunity working in traditional finance, right? No offense, but that's not for me, right? I'm definitely not politically correct all the time. But I belong here in the crypto space. I feel welcome. And what I hope is there's more brown and black boys up on this stage with tattoos, like myself, not just with a British accent, but from around the world. Because they're like, hey, he was 25, he was mixed race, he had tattoos, he's a cool guy. But wait, he can be shoulder to shoulder with someone like yourself. So that's where I feel crypto's giving us the opportunity, but I throw that back to all of you in this room and the marvelous theme that we have for this conference, which is, of course, let there be change. But at the end of the day, and I'm not putting any pressure on any of you in the audience, you can be behind the camera and no one can see what the audience looks like, sadly. I can. I know it's diverse. But all of you have massive value. That's why I'm losing my voice. I want to see more speakers. And this conference is doing just that. So please don't think that you can't be doing this. You can. It's nerve-wracking. It gets easier. You're just having a conversation, but more people are listening. So I encourage you to get in front of the camera, because that's the only way that we'll see that change, because they can't see the audience. I know I didn't answer the question.
That's okay. I'm going to ask one last question, just one last. Kareem, and then if you want to do Q&A or if we're out of time, it's fine. So far, we've mostly talked about the democratization of current business, okay? But obviously, these technologies enable new-to-the-world businesses that have never existed before. And there's one in particular which I think an awful lot of people find very hard to understand. And I just want you to try and articulate why it's compelling to you without referring back to making money, right? So I want to know the whys beyond making money of virtual good NFTs. That's the topic. So, obviously everyone understands that a lot of virtual assets in the form of NFTs are being perceived as very valuable. And a lot of people look at them and say, I don't get it at all. It's just a cartoon of an ape and there's a lot of them. How can that be valuable? Don't talk about money. Why do you think that has any substance to it?
So when it comes to NFTs, I don't have massive exposure to give context. Again, the ex-punks will be the ones to argue that case. So it's easier for me not to talk about money when it comes to NFTs. What I understand, NFTs, they have a utility. It's similar to what Jared said. Not every business idea or solution needs to be a cryptocurrency. Not every idea needs to have an NFT behind it. But here's the answer. And again, it comes from Jared. I know people smarter than me. I just echo it. And I asked him, why not a QR code? A QR code does something quite similar. And what he said was a QR code can be photocopied. Okay, so, yep, you got me there. Number two, you can change the URL of a QR code. I thought, damn, he really is smart. And the list went on and on and on.
Okay, so I'm going to stop you there, just because I don't want you to go down the technical path. If I gave you a Bored Ape, would you change your feeling about yourself other than the money? I'm giving you a Bored Ape.
I'm going to give
changing?
you something from Gary Vaynerchuk, which is if you have a Rolex, everyone in that room knows that you hit that certain status. Whether you feel that way or the room feels that way about you wearing that Rolex. Problem is, my girlfriend wouldn't let me bring my Rolex because we're going to Brazil tomorrow. So now no one knows that I have a Rolex. But if I have a Bored Ape, I actually don't even know the name properly. Say it again.
Go ahead. Just keep going.
What's it called, Kai?
Bored Ape. Yeah.
Bored Yacht Apes? Yacht? Bases, we'll go with bases. Again, I'm not the NFT guy.
Okay.
With bases, if I put that on my Instagram as a profile picture, now thousands of people know that I have an NFT that cost me $10,000. If I wear a Rolex, only 100 people know I have the Rolex, unless I take a picture and I put it on Instagram. So the NFT now allows you to flex to more people, in my opinion. I used to have an ex-punk as my profile picture. Again, that was a massive flex for me, and flex, again, means showing off, to a massive community, right? So that's where I see the NFTs endorsing the ego.
Okay. So thank you, Jordan. That was good. So anyhow, listen, we don't have any answers, but what we're trying to give you a flavor of is that this isn't fake. No. There's real problems embedded in the corporate business model, and some people are coming up with innovative ways of changing the world and moving business in a different direction. And you're going to have to decide, do you believe it or not? Yeah. But what's absolutely certain is you should not rely on the business model of the past enduring all that much longer. And that has profound implications for business everywhere. And with that, Corinne?
Thank you so much, Matthew and Jordan. I think that was very insightful.
Thank you.